The year was 2237, and humanity had ascended to the stars, expanding their reach across the galaxy. Colonies thrived on planets orbiting distant suns, each a testament to human tenacity and ambition. However, the vastness of space was not without its dangers. Among the myriad species encountered, the Carcossians stood out. Tall and imposing, with metallic scales that glimmered under any light, they were as intimidating as they were advanced. Their society prided itself on technological prowess and martial discipline, viewing other species, particularly humans, as inferior. For years, the Carcossians and humans had coexisted uneasily, their territories brushing against one another like the edges of a knife. Trade disputes, skirmishes over unclaimed planets, and ideological differences had strained relations to the breaking point. The Carcossian High Council, emboldened by their superior technology, saw humanity's rapid expansion as an encroachment that needed to be stopped. In a bold and decisive move, they declared war on the United Earth Federation, UEF, confident that their firepower and tactical acumen would swiftly subdue the human upstarts. On Earth, the declaration of war arrived with the dawn, broadcasted through every channel, every device. The president of the UEF, Ilara Voss, stood before the world's eyes, her face a mask of steely resolve. She spoke of the threat, of the courage and unity that humanity must summon to face this new challenge. Her words resonated across the globe and the colonies, sparking a fire in the hearts of billions. Admiral Zara Moran watched the president's address from the bridge of her flagship, the USS Resolute. She was the youngest admiral in the fleet's history, a tactical genius with a reputation for unconventional strategies. Her dark eyes were fixed on the holographic display of the Carcossian fleet's movements. As the president's speech ended, she turned to her officers, her voice calm but firm. "Prepare the fleet. We move out immediately." Her command echoed through the ship, spurring the crew into action. Within hours, the fleet was ready, a formidable armada of ships bristling with weaponry and shielded by the latest in human engineering. As they set course for the outer rim, where the first engagements were expected, a sense of grim determination settled over the crew. They knew the Carcossians were a formidable foe, but they also knew that humanity had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. On the Carcossian homeworld of Krylok, the High Council convened in their grand chamber, a vast hall of polished stone and shimmering energy fields. Supreme Commander Ralek, a veteran of countless campaigns, stood before the council, his presence commanding respect and fear. "Humans are resourceful, but they are unprepared for the might of the Carcossian Empire," he declared, his voice resonating through the chamber. "We will strike swiftly and decisively, crushing their defenses and forcing them to submit." The council members, their faces hidden behind ornate masks, nodded in agreement. They believed in their superiority, in their destiny to rule the stars. The decision to go to war had been made with confidence, without fully understanding the resilience and ingenuity of their new adversaries. As the Carcossian fleet surged toward human space, Admiral Moran's fleet made their stand near the outer rim planet of Helios 3. The planet, a strategic outpost rich in resources, was the first line of defense against the invaders. Moran knew the stakes. If Helios 3 fell, it would be a direct path to the heart of human territory. The first encounter was brutal. The Carcossians unleashed a barrage of advanced weaponry, their ships shimmering with energy as they cut through the void. Human ships responded with coordinated strikes, utilizing hit-and-run tactics that tested the Carcossian defenses. The USS Resolute led the charge, its weapons blazing as it wove through enemy fire. Captain Elias Cade, a seasoned pilot with a penchant for daring maneuvers, led a squadron of stealth fighters that penetrated deep into the Carcossian formation. Their mission, to disable the enemy flagship's main weapons systems. Cade's voice crackled over the comms, steady and confident. "Stay sharp, team. We have one shot at this." Dodging enemy fire, the stealth fighters approached the flagship. Using advanced cloaking technology, they slipped past the defenses and launched their attack. Explosions rocked the Carcossian ship, and its weapon systems flickered and went dark. The tide of battle began to turn. On the ground, Colonel Maria Reyes led the resistance, organizing the colonists into a formidable fighting force. They used the rugged terrain of Helios 3 to their advantage, setting ambushes and traps that inflicted heavy casualties on the Carcossian ground forces. Reyes, a tactical mastermind with a fierce determination, inspired her troops with her unwavering resolve. As the battle raged on, the Carcossians found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Human adaptability and resilience shone through, turning what was supposed to be a swift victory into a protracted and costly engagement. Forced to retreat, the Carcossians licked their wounds and re-evaluated their strategy. The first encounter had ended in a stalemate, but it was clear that this war would not be as easy as the Carcossians had anticipated. Admiral Moran and her fleet had proven that humanity was not to be underestimated. The declaration of war had been made, but the Carcossians were beginning to realize that going to war with humans might have been their worst decision ever. The icy silence of space was shattered by the roar of engines and the crackle of energy weapons as the UEF fleet clashed with the Carcossian armada near the outer rim planet of Helios 3. The once peaceful expanse was now a battlefield, lit by the flashes of explosions and the streaks of laser fire. The humans and Carcossians, two species from different corners of the galaxy, were now locked in a struggle that would determine the fate of their worlds. Admiral Zara Moran stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, her eyes fixed on the tactical display that showed the positions of both fleets. Her mind raced, analyzing the movements of the enemy, searching for weaknesses. She had trained her entire life for this moment, and she knew that the fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. "Status report," Moran commanded, her voice steady. "Shields holding at 75%, Admiral," replied Lieutenant Harris, the tactical officer. "Enemy fleet is advancing, but their formations are tight. We have an opportunity to exploit their overconfidence." Moran nodded. "Prepare for Phase 2 of the plan. We need to disrupt their coordination." On the other side of the battlefield, the Carcossian flagship, a colossal vessel bristling with advanced weaponry, led the charge. Supreme Commander Rallick observed the battle from his command chair, his face a mask of determination. He had underestimated the humans once, and he would not make that mistake again. "Launch the drone fighters," Rallick ordered. "Overwhelm their defenses and break their lines." Swarms of Carcossian drone fighters, sleek and deadly, poured from the flagship, heading straight for the human fleet. They moved with precision, their AI-driven systems coordinating their attacks flawlessly. It was a sight designed to instill fear, but Moran was ready. "Deploy countermeasures," Moran ordered. From the human ships, a wave of electronic jamming devices launched, spreading out and creating a field of interference that scrambled the drone's communications. The once coordinated swarm began to falter, their movements becoming erratic and disorganized. "Now strike teams, go," Moran commanded. Captain Elias Cade, leading a squadron of stealth fighters, took advantage of the confusion. His fighters slipped past the drones and headed straight for the Carcossian flagship. The mission was clear: disable its main weapons and give the human fleet a fighting chance. "Stay in formation," Cade instructed his team. "We hit them hard and fast." The stealth fighters, equipped with the latest cloaking technology, approached the flagship undetected. As they closed in, Cade's fingers danced over the controls, targeting the ship's weapon systems. The fighters unleashed a barrage of precision missiles, each one striking a critical point on the Carcossian vessel. Explosions rippled across the flagship's surface, and its main weapons went dark. Inside the Carcossian ship, alarms blared, and the crew scrambled to contain the damage. Supreme Commander Rallick's expression darkened as he realized his ship had been compromised. "Get those systems back online," Rallick bellowed. "We cannot let them gain the upper hand." On the ground of Helios 3, Colonel Maria Reyes coordinated the planetary defense. The Carcossians had landed troops, hoping to secure the planet and turn it into a staging ground for further assaults. Reyes, a seasoned veteran with a fierce reputation, had other plans. "Use the terrain to our advantage," Reyes instructed her forces. "Ambushes, traps, whatever it takes to slow them down." The rugged landscape of Helios 3, with its rocky canyons and dense forests, provided ample cover for guerrilla tactics. Human soldiers, alongside local militia, set up ambushes and booby traps that inflicted heavy casualties on the Carcossian ground forces. Reyes led from the front, her presence inspiring her troops to fight with renewed vigor. In one such ambush, a Carcossian patrol found themselves surrounded by human forces. The ensuing firefight was brutal, but the humans, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain, emerged victorious. Reyes stood over the captured Carcossians, her eyes hard. "You're not invincible," she told them. "Remember that." Back in space, the tide of battle was turning. With the Carcossian flagship's main weapons disabled, the human fleet pressed their advantage. The USS Resolute, leading the charge, unleashed a barrage of firepower that tore through the enemy lines. "Admiral, enemy flagship is retreating," Lieutenant Harris reported. Moran allowed herself a small, grim smile. "Pursue them. We need to keep the pressure on." The Carcossian fleet, battered and unable to maintain their assault, began to pull back. Human ships gave chase, ensuring that the retreat was anything but orderly. The first encounter had ended in a decisive victory for humanity, but Moran knew this was just the beginning. As the dust settled and the battlefield fell silent, Admiral Moran addressed her crew. "This is a victory, but it is not the end. The Carcossians will return and we must be ready. Remember today and remember that we are fighting for the survival of our species. We cannot falter." Across the galaxy, news of the victory at Helios 3 spread, bolstering human morale. The Carcossians had underestimated humanity and they were paying the price. But even as the celebrations began, everyone knew that the war was far from over. The first encounter had been won, but the fight for the future had only just begun. The war raged on for months, each battle testing the limits of both the Carcossian Empire and the United Earth Federation. Skirmishes turned into full-scale battles, and both sides suffered heavy losses. Yet, humanity's resilience and adaptability continued to surprise the Carcossians, who had never encountered an enemy that could match their technological prowess with sheer determination and ingenuity. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, the Carcossians set their sights on New Tera, the largest and most strategically important human colony outside Earth. Situated in the Proxima Centauri system, New Tera was a hub of resources, technology, and population. The Carcossian High Council believed that by capturing New Tera, they could break human morale and secure a critical foothold in human space. Admiral Zara Moran knew that losing New Tera would be catastrophic. She gathered her fleet and made the jump to the Proxima Centauri system, determined to defend the colony at all costs. As the fleet approached New Tera, Moran studied the tactical display, her mind racing with plans and contingencies. "Admiral, Carcossian fleet incoming. Estimated time to contact, 20 minutes, reported Lieutenant Harris. Moran nodded. "Deploy all squadrons and prepare the orbital defenses. We can't let them get a foothold on the surface." On the surface of New Tera, the situation was equally tense. The sprawling megacities of the colony were a stark contrast to the natural beauty of the planet's untouched wilderness. Colonel Maria Reyes, now in charge of the Planetary Defense Forces, coordinated with local militia and civilian volunteers to prepare for the inevitable ground assault. "Colonel, we've fortified the main entrances to the city, and all civilians are being evacuated to the underground shelters," reported Major Patel, her second-in-command. Reyes nodded. "Good. We need to make sure they don't reach the city center. Use the terrain to our advantage and set up ambush points in the surrounding forests and canyons." The Carcossian fleet arrived with the force of a hurricane, their ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. They wasted no time, launching waves of landing craft towards the surface while their capital ships engaged the human fleet in orbit. The battle for New Tera had begun. In space, the USS Resolute led the human fleet, its weapons blazing as it took on multiple Carcossian vessels. The fight was brutal and chaotic, with ships weaving through a deadly dance of laser fire and missile salvos. Admiral Moran directed her forces with precision, exploiting every opportunity to outmaneuver and outgun the enemy. "Focus fire on their command ship," Moran ordered. "We need to disrupt their chain of command." Meanwhile, on the ground, the Carcossian troops landed in waves, their advanced exoskeletons and energy weapons making them formidable opponents. But the human defenders, using the dense forests and rocky canyons of New Tera, launched a series of hit-and-run attacks that inflicted heavy casualties on the invaders. Colonel Reyes led a strike team through the wilderness, her familiarity with the terrain giving her an edge. They ambushed a Carcossian patrol, taking out key officers and sowing confusion among the enemy ranks. "Keep moving. We can't let them regroup," Reyes urged her team. "Every second we delay them is a second we gain up there." In the heart of the city, young engineer Alex Hartfield worked frantically in an underground command center. He had been tasked with a critical mission: to hack into the Carcossian communication network and create chaos among their forces. Sweat trickled down his face as he typed furiously, bypassing firewalls and decrypting data. Come on, Alex muttered. "Just a little more." Finally, he broke through. A flood of data streamed across his screen, and Alex quickly uploaded a virus designed to disrupt the Carcossian systems. Within minutes, the invaders' communications became garbled, their commands delayed or lost entirely. "Colonel Reyes, this is Hartfield. I've done it. Their comms are down," Alex reported over the secure channel. Reyes allowed herself a rare smile. "Excellent work, Alex. Let's press the advantage. All units, move in and hit them hard." The human defenders launched a coordinated counter-offensive, using the confusion sown by Alex's hack to push back the Carcossians. In orbit, the tide was also turning. With their command ship disabled, the Carcossian fleet's coordination faltered, allowing the UEF fleet to press their advantage. Admiral Moran watched as the Carcossian ships began to retreat. "We have them on the run. Pursue and ensure they don't regroup." The combined efforts of the space and ground forces began to pay off. The Carcossian troops, unable to maintain their advance without effective communication and leadership, started to withdraw. The human forces, relentless and determined, pushed them back to their landing zones and beyond. By the end of the day, New Tera was secure. The Carcossian fleet had retreated, their ground forces decimated, and morale shattered. Admiral Moran stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, looking at the tactical display with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "Well done, everyone," Moran said to her crew. "New Tera remains in our hands. This victory is a testament to our strength and resilience." On the surface, Colonel Reyes and her team surveyed the battlefield. The cost had been high, but they had held their ground. Reyes looked at the sky, where the last remnants of the Carcossian fleet were vanishing into the void. "We did it," Major Patel said, his voice filled with awe. Reyes nodded. "Yes, we did, but this isn't the end. We need to stay vigilant. They'll be back." As the humans regrouped and began rebuilding, the news of the victory at New Tera spread across the galaxy. It was a turning point in the war, a clear message to the Carcossians that humanity would not be easily conquered. The Carcossian High Council, now acutely aware of the challenge they faced, began to reconsider their strategy. For Admiral Moran, Colonel Reyes, and the countless others who had fought and sacrificed, the battle for New Tera was a reminder of the stakes involved. The war was far from over, but the humans had shown that they could not only stand their ground, but also strike back with devastating effectiveness. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Going to war with humans was proving to be the Carcossians' worst decision ever. The galaxy had been plunged into war for over a year, and the conflict had reached a boiling point. The United Earth Federation, UEF, and the Carcossian Empire had both suffered staggering losses, and the cost of war weighed heavily on both sides. However, humanity's resilience had turned the tide, and the Carcossians were beginning to realize that their war of conquest was not going as planned. Admiral Zara Moran, now a celebrated hero across human space, stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, her eyes focused on the final objective, the Carcossian home system. Intelligence reports indicated that the Carcossians were consolidating their forces for a last-ditch defense of their homeworld, Krylok. The UEF High Command had decided that it was time to bring the fight to the enemy's doorstep and end the war once and for all. "Admiral, all ships report ready," Lieutenant Harris announced, his voice filled with anticipation. Moran nodded. "Set course for the Krylok system. It's time to finish this. The UEF fleet, bolstered by new alliances with other alien races who had suffered under Carcossian aggression, jumped into hyperspace. The journey was fraught with tension, as every crew member knew the stakes. This battle would determine the future of the galaxy. As the fleet emerged from hyperspace, the sight of Krylok filled their viewports. The Carcossian homeworld was a harsh and imposing planet, with sprawling cities covered in metallic structures and surrounded by massive defensive installations. The Carcossian fleet awaited them, a formidable armada ready to defend their home to the last. "Admiral, Carcossian fleet is hailing us," Harris reported. "On screen," Moran ordered. Supreme Commander Rallick appeared on the view screen, his expression stern and defiant. "Admiral Moran, you have come a long way to die. The Carcossian Empire will never surrender to your kind." Moran met his gaze, her voice calm but resolute. "We do not seek the destruction of your people, Commander. Surrender now, and we can find a way to coexist. Continue this war, and you will face total annihilation." Rallick's eyes blazed with anger. "We will fight to the last breath. Prepare for battle." The view screen went dark, and the silence that followed was broken by the sounds of battle stations coming to life. The UEF fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The final battle had begun. In space, the clash was monumental. Ships from both sides maneuvered in a deadly dance, exchanging fire and deploying tactics honed over months of conflict. The Carcossian defenses were formidable, but the human fleet, with its diverse array of ships and strategies, began to break through their lines. "Target their command ship," Moran ordered. "We need to cut off their leadership." As the USS Resolute led the charge, Captain Elias Cade and his squadron of elite pilots executed daring maneuvers, taking out key Carcossian vessels and providing cover for the larger capital ships. The coordination and bravery of the human pilots were on full display, turning the tide of the battle. On the ground, Colonel Maria Reyes and her Special Forces team infiltrated Krylok's main city. Their mission was to disable the planetary defense grid, which would allow the UEF fleet to strike at the heart of the Carcossian command center. Reyes moved with precision, her team taking out guards and avoiding detection as they made their way to the control center. "Alex, we're in position. How's it looking on your end?" Reyes asked over the comm. In an underground bunker, Alex Hartfield worked furiously at his terminal, hacking into the Carcossian defense systems. "Almost there, Colonel. Just need a few more seconds. Got it. Defense grid is offline." "Good work, Alex. All units, move in," Reyes commanded. The human ground forces surged forward, overwhelming the Carcossian defenders, who were caught off guard by the sudden loss of their defenses. Reyes and her team secured the control center, ensuring that the Carcossians could not regain control of the grid. Back in space, the tide of the battle shifted decisively. With the planetary defenses down, the UEF fleet unleashed a devastating barrage on the Carcossian capital ships. The command ship, targeted by Moran's tactical brilliance, took critical hits and began to break apart. "Commander Rallick's ship is down," Lieutenant Harris reported. Moran nodded, her expression grim. "Broadcast a general message to all Carcossian forces. Inform them that their command ship is destroyed and their defense grid is offline. Offer them the chance to surrender." The message went out, and across the battlefield, Carcossian ships began to cease fire. The realization that their leaders had fallen and their defenses were compromised spread like wildfire. One by one, Carcossian ships powered down their weapons and surrendered. Supreme Commander Rallick, wounded but alive, was brought before Admiral Moran on the bridge of the USS Resolute. He stood tall, his pride intact despite his defeat. "You have fought with honor, Commander," Moran said. "But this war is over. We can rebuild, together." Rallick nodded slowly, the weight of his people's suffering evident in his eyes. "Perhaps we can." In the aftermath of the battle, a peace treaty was signed on neutral ground. The Carcossians, humbled and respectful, acknowledged the indomitable spirit of humanity. The treaty marked the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding. Admiral Moran, Colonel Reyes, Captain Cade, and Alex Hartfield stood as symbols of humanity's resilience and unity. Their names were etched in history, remembered as the leaders who defied the odds and forged a path to peace. The galaxy began to heal, the scars of war slowly fading as former enemies worked together to rebuild. The Carcossians learned that their worst decision, to go to war with humans, had also led to their greatest opportunity, the chance to learn from and alongside a species that had shown them the true meaning of strength and perseverance. As the stars continued to shine down on a new era of peace, humanity stood ready to face the future, united and unyielding, with a promise to protect and cherish the hard-won harmony they had achieved.